du atmest, kein Entschluss von dir. Vergiss es nie, dass du liebst, war eines anderen Idee. Und dass du atmest, ist ein Entschluss von dir. Du bist gewollt, kein Kind des Zufalls, keine Laune der Natur. Ganz egal, ob du dein Lebenslied in Moll singst oder Dur. Du bist ein Gedanke Gottes, ein genialer noch dazu. Du bist du, das ist der Clou. Ja, der Clou. Ja, du bist du. Vergiss es nie, niemand denkt und fühlt und handelt so wie du. Und niemand lächelt so wie du's grad tust. Vergiss es nie, niemand sieht den Himmel ganz genau wie du. Und niemand hat je, was du weißt, gewusst. Du bist gewollt, kein Kind des Zufalls, keine Laune der Natur. Ganz egal, ob du dein Lebenslied in Moll singst oder Dur. Du bist ein Gedanke Gottes, ein genialer noch dazu. Du bist du, das ist der Clou. Ja, der Clou ist, du bist du. Vergiss es nie, dein Gesicht hat niemand sonst auf dieser Welt. Und solche Augen hast alleine du. Vergiss es nie, du bist reich, egal ob mit oder ohne Geld. Denn du kannst leben, niemand lebt wie du. Du bist gewollt, kein Kind des Zufalls, keine Laune der Natur. Ganz egal, ob du dein Lebenslied in Moll singst oder Dur. Du bist ein Gedanke Gottes, ein Genial noch dazu. Du bist du, das ist der Clou. Ja, der Clou ist, du bist du. Du bist gewollt, kein Kind des Zufalls, keine Laune der Natur. Ganz egal, ob du dein Lebenslied in Moll singst oder Dur. Du bist ein Gedanke Gottes, ein Genialer noch dazu. Du bist du, das ist der Clou. Ja, der Clou ist, du bist du.
Hello and welcome to our SMD Chemnitz live stream again. Worldwide, the number of corona-infected people is still rising rapidly. The healthcare professionals do a strenuous job and work very hard now. The hospitals in many neighboring countries of Germany, like Italy, Spain or France, are overstrained, and the health material like breathing masks or protective clothing are goods in short supply. I think many people become scared when they hear the bad news in this time. Maybe you are afraid of the virus to become sick, or you are worried about your family, or possibly you have financial problems concerning the strict arrangements against the pandemic. Today, Johnny will tell us something about this topic. How to overcome fear.
Hello, welcome all of you to our live stream. I'm really happy that you joined, and hopefully you can hear me and see me very well. Unfortunately, I can't do that. I can't see any of you and I can't hear you. But I think that in a shorter period of time, we will see each other in person, and I'm really looking forward to meet all of you and talk with you. So for right now, I would like to share you a topic. And the topic of today is based how can I overcome fear? How can I handle fear? And I think especially at this specific time, at the time the coronavirus is influencing our life so much, it's a really important topic. But this topic is also important for your whole life. So also in 1 year, in 10 years, you will have to handle fear. Fear will be in your life. And I think all of you also experienced fear in your past. So this topic is really important now and also in the future. So I would like all of you to stop the video and get something to write down. Get your phone, get your notebook, get pen and paper, get whatever, but just write it down, because there will be times where you need things, how you can handle fear, how you can overcome this fear. So just pause it and get something to write down so you have it for later. Well done, thank you. So I would like to tell you a story first. And the story is written in the Bible, and Jesus is there at a big lake. And it said that there are 5,000 men, so it's only men. So if you add women and children, it's maybe 10,000 people. And Jesus is talking to them, and then it's like getting late, it's getting to the evening, and the disciples, who are like the closest friend of Jesus, they come to Jesus and say, you know it's getting late, I think you should send all the people home. So they go home and cook their dinner and eat. And Jesus says, no, we should not do that. Just leave them here. We can give them some food and they can stay here. And the disciples, they look at each other and say, how? How should we do this? We only have two breads and 5 fishes. And Jesus tells them, just give me the food. And Jesus prays for the food. And he cuts the bread into pieces and gives it back to the disciples. And the disciples share the food to all the 10,000 people there. And every one of these 10,000 people eats. It is fish and bread. And after some time, everyone is satisfied. Everyone is full. Nobody is hungry anymore. And when they collect the leftovers, 12 baskets of food are left. So that's a crazy story. I think most Christian people know the story. It's quite common. And this story is some kind of supernatural. Because how can that work? How can that be? It's a crazy story. But I told you I would talk about fear. But there's no fear in it, is it? No, I'm honest, there's no fear in this topic right now. But I promise you, the story that comes next will show you the fear. So after all the men were fed, Jesus goes to the disciples and say, just enter the boat and cross the lake, and I will meet you on the other side. I will follow later. And the disciples do that. They enter the boat and cross the lake. And when they were in the middle of the lake, it's like a quite big lake, not like the Schlossteig, it's way bigger. So when they cross the lake in the middle, like very strong waves appear. And the ship is like really shaking and moving. The tide is strong. And a lot of the disciples are really afraid that the ship will sink and maybe they will drown. And at that moment, Jesus is coming to the boat. He's walking on the water. So what are the disciples doing when they see Jesus? They get even more terrified. They get more frightened. They are like really shaken out of fear because they see Jesus walking on the water. And they are more scared than before, and they shout, "It's a ghost! It's a ghost!" And Jesus just tells them, you don't have to be afraid. It's just me. Don't be scared. And I think now you can see the topic fear in it. And out of this story, you can find 2 things you should write down. And the first one is, it's really important, all people are afraid. Everyone has fears. Again, all people are afraid. Everyone has fears. And sometimes we see people and we think, oh, they are perfect. They don't have any fears. So maybe you're afraid of heights. And you see people who just climb very high mountains. And they don't seem to be afraid of height at all. Or there are people, they can just walk to random people and talk to them. And for them it's just normal. And you think, how can he just talk to a person he never met? Just talk to anybody. Or there are people who just go to another country and they don't have any fears. And when you go to another country, you think, oh, there could be things that go wrong. But everyone has fears. And some fears you can see at the first time. You see that somebody is afraid of heights, or somebody is afraid to talk to other people. But there are some fears you don't see so fast. But I can promise you, every person has fears, and it's totally okay to have fears. And you don't have to be ashamed or feel bad for that. So that's number 1. Everyone is afraid. Everyone has fears. And then there's number 2. If we're in situations of fear, we act unreasonable. We don't make the smartest decision. So if we look to the story, the disciples, they experience a miracle. They experience that Jesus is God and he can do things that are supernatural. And they also see that God cares about the humans. God cared about, and Jesus cared about the people so they get something to eat. So for me, I think it's normal if like the wind is strong, the tide is strong, you're afraid to drown. But normally when Jesus comes, you see, oh, Jesus can help us, and he wants to help us because he cares for other people. But they get even more scared. They get even more terrified. Instead of having hope, they get even more fear. And that shows that in situations of fear, you don't pick the best option. You act unreasonable. And that's really the second point. We act unreasonable if fear is in us. And I think that are the effects of fear. I think fear limits us in so many different ways. I think fear will make us take the wrong decisions. We will take the wrong actions. It can paralyze us. So we don't do things we should do because we are afraid. I think all of us have fears. So have I. And most of you come from a privileged background. So everyone who's born in Germany is presumably richer than 90% in the world. And everyone who comes from abroad to study here has the ability to study and has the ability to come to Germany. So most of us, we don't have to be afraid that we don't have anything to eat. But even though we have a really strong fear that our future employment, our future job will not help us to have enough money, we are afraid that we will not earn enough, that people will look bad at us because we don't have a good job, and all of that. And these fears, they do something with us. They force us to do decisions, and they also make us sad because we are afraid, oh, if I fail this exam, I will fail my study, and then I will find no job, or I can only do like a very bad job. So this is like one thing we have if it looks to money, but it can also be we are afraid for our family, what will happen to our friends, to our parents, to our sisters and brothers. Or we are afraid that we get rejected by other people, that other people don't like us and they reject us. Or we are afraid that there are things in our life we can't control. So every one of us has fears. But these fears, they influence our life so much. And I think for us it's really important to overcome these fears and to know how to handle it. And because of that, I would like to give you 5 ways you can overcome fears. And it's really important to write it down, because if you know them, in 1 year, in 5 years, you can look at that and see, okay, that are the steps. Because it's way easier to do things on the checklist if you know them, instead of just starting at any points. So we start with number 1. Remember that problem will pass. Problems will pass. Fears will pass. So if we just look at the coronavirus, all epidemics and all pandemics, they don't go straight up. They are like a bell curve. So they go up, and at some point they go down to almost zero. And that's also what problems will do. Problems will come, but I can promise you they will also disappear. They are not going to last forever. And this point is very simple, and most of us know it, but I just want to remind you that problems will come, but they will also go. They will not last forever. And I can give you a very interesting Bible quote on that. In Corinthians 4 it said, "For our temporary and momentary troubles will not last, but they are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we focus not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." So I will tell you the last one again. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. So it's really important to know that problems are temporary. It's only for a limited time, and that will reduce our fear a lot. That's number 1. Remember that the problems will pass. Number 2, remember to focus on what is unchanging. And as I said, problems will go. Problems will also come, because change is something that's inevitable. We will also have changes in our life. So your friends will change, your relationships will change, your employment will change, you will change, economy will change, everything will change. That's something we can't influence. So how can we get stability if everything is changing? So for me, I find out that the key to stability are the unchanging truth. So the truth that cannot be changed, and that gives us a stability, like a foundation we can build on. So if you want to know what are these unchangeable truths, it's so like a big word, but what is it? So I have 6 unchangeable truths for you, and I really would like to encourage you to write them down because it's really important to know them. So the first one is God sees everything I'm going through. Again, God sees everything I'm going through. So it's not that we are alone. God is there and He sees us. And number 2, God cares about everything I'm going through. So God sees and He cares about everything I'm going through. And that's really important to know, that God really cares about us. He cares about our situation, about our lives, and about the things we're going through. So we're not alone, and God cares. And number 3 is also really important. God has the power to change what I'm going through. So He does not only sees it, He does not only cares it, He can also change it. And if we know that God changes it, and that is the truth that cannot be changed, it will change our perspective and fear. Number 4, God always acts out of His goodness towards us. So God has good things for us. He loves us, and because of that, He wants that we feel fine, that we have good things. And all He does for us is out of His goodness, because He's a good God. So it's really important to know that. Number 5, God's plan is always good. And that's really important, because sometimes I think this is good, this is bad. And maybe at the end of a year, you make a list and say, okay, this was good, this was bad, this was good, this was bad. And you try to rate and value things in your life, your actions, your personality, whatever. What things happened, whether good or bad. But God has a way bigger picture of it. He does not only see like the next week or the next month, He sees everything what will happen. And therefore, God's plan is good for us, because God knows what's good for the whole time. And I experienced in my life a lot of times that I thought, why is happening this? This is not good. I don't want to be in this situation. But after some time, I find out that this was really important for me. It really helped me in my life and to build my character and my personality. So this is number 5. God's plan is always good for me. And the last point number 6, God will never stop loving you. God will never stop loving you. Whatever happens in your life, whatever you do, God will always love you. And that's really crucial. It's important to know that. Don't forget that. And I think in moments of fear, you should focus on these 6 points. You should focus on God's love, on His grace, and His goodness for me, that God has a good plan for me. Because if we base our life on that, we know that fear has no chance, because we know God is good, God loves us, and God cares for us. And there's like one important saying where it said, fear is a problem of wrong perspective. So if our perspective is only on us, it's really hard to overcome fear. But if it's not, it's way easier. So for me right now, it's a really difficult situation. I finished my studies and now I'm trying to apply for a job. But as you know, the situation is not so great right now, because many companies, they don't hire anyone anymore. And also the application process is really hard, because you can't speak to persons on person or anything like this. So it's like the worst situation to apply for a job. And immediately the fear is starting to rise. You think, oh, if I don't get a job, then I will not get any money and I cannot support myself. Or I will get like a very bad job, and after that I will not get another good job because I will get a bad job. And you really got to get afraid of the future, like the fears rising of not having enough money, of having a bad life. But I realized that that is not true, because God is good and God has a good plan for me. So what He does, He will give me some good job, He will give me the right job, because He cares for me. And because I have this faith and this trust in God, I don't have to be afraid. I know God has one good job for me and I can trust on that. And I do my things, I apply, but I don't have to be afraid because I know God cares. And this is like a really big change in my perspective, because it's not about me, I have to do that, I have to provide. I know that God provides for me. And in this hard times for me, there's one song that's really important for me. And one verse, it said, "Take a moment to remember who God is and who I am. there you go, lifting my load again. And for me, that's really true, because when I realize it's not about me, it's about God, it will change a lot, because God provides for me. And like the whole fear, the whole load removes. I think most of us knows the feeling when you're in fear and you're afraid what the future will come. And you don't feel really good, you feel really afraid, and you just want to run away or hide. But if that feeling is gone, if you're free, it's really, really great. So point number 2 is really important, I think, to remember to focus on the things that are unchanging. The next point, number 3, is remember what I'm going through. God will go through it with me. So I will be not alone. God will be there for me. And I think this point is really easy to understand, that God is with us. I don't want to talk that much about it, but if God is with us, there's nothing that can be stronger than God. So all fear should disappear. And I know it's easy said. In reality, it's really hard to understand that, especially in times where our fear is strong. We think, God, where are you? I don't feel good right now. I'm really in fear, and I don't see you. Where are you? But I can promise you, especially in these times, God is very close to you. And I would also like to share another verse from the Bible. It's in Isaiah, and there it said, where God tells us, when you go through deep waters, I will be with you. When you pass through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned up. It will not consume you. And in Matthew 28, Jesus tells, and surely I am with you to the very end of time. And if we realize that God is with us, no matter what we're going through, God's there with us. We know that our good shepherd is there. And as Jan Martin told you, I think a lot of times, a good shepherd takes care of his sheep, and we are his sheep. And if we know God is there, the shepherd is there, we can be sure that he takes care of us. He gives us water, he gives us food, he gives us a shelter. And we don't have to be afraid, because God cares for us, even in situations of fear, especially in these situations. So this was number 3. Remember, God is there and he knows what you're going through. So point number 4, I would like to start with a Bible verse. And it says, we often suffer, but we never crushed. Even when we don't know what to do, we never give up. In times of trouble, God is with us. And when we are knocked down, we get up again. Because we know God raised the Lord back to life. And just as he raised Jesus, he will also raise us back to life and bring us into his presence together. And that's point number 4. Remember, this right now is not the end of the story. So, I don't know who of you watch a series. I think right now most of us have time to do that. So when I was younger, I liked to watch How I Met Your Mother. Maybe some of you like to watch maybe Game of Thrones or any of these series. And when I started to watch How I Met Your Mother, I didn't start it at episode 1 and series 1. I was like older, so they were like episode 5 or 6. So when I started at season 1, episode 1, I knew there are like 4 more seasons to come. So the end of this episode, this cliffhanger will not be the end. This cannot be the mother, because there are more series and more episodes to come. And it will be the same with many other series. If you know there are more episodes and more series to come, the tension of a cliffhanger, it will reduce, because you know there's more to come. It's not the end. And it's exactly that is the same for us as Christians. Because we know our goal, our end is not here right now, in this moment of fear. Our goal is to be together with God in heaven, forever in eternity. And God promised us that we can be with him in heaven. And if we know that the end is not now, it's not over, it's just the beginning of the story, and the end is still to come, we don't have to be afraid, because we know there's more to come, and this is only the beginning. And what it will do, it will change our focus and it will change our perspective, because we have this eternity. We know we're looking for eternity. We don't look like for this short period of fear. We know there's way more to come, which is way longer and way better. So if we understand that this is not the end of the story, it's just the beginning, our fear will reduce. And the last time, number 5, is don't stay at home. Don't stay at home. So understand me correctly. I don't want to say you should do something stupid. I don't say you should disobey to the quarantine. This is a very good way to reduce the coronavirus. But in this modern time, we have so many technologies to talk to other people, to connect to other people. You can call them, you can Skype them, you can Zoom them, whatever. There are so many possibilities because it's really important that you connect to other people, you talk with other people, just about general things, but really especially about your fears. And as some may know, in my spare time, I work with kids, and sometimes we go climbing. I think most of you know what climbing is. And when a kid climbs for the first time, and it climbs and climbs, and it reaches the top, the kid has to remove the grip. It has to remove like all hands and feet from the wall, and trust only the rope, and I, the button who secures the kid, will let the kid down by the rope. But if the kid did it for the first time, the kid never experienced that the rope will hold, that the rope will secure it. So when I tell, okay, now, kid, just take your hand and your feet away, the kid will not do it. Most kids are afraid, and we will also be. We say, no, I will not hold, I will hold on to the grip. I will not release it. And the kid stays there. And the kid, it can't move up, and it can't move down. It just holds the grip and is afraid to fall down. And that's sometimes what we have in our lives. We're inside a cage of fear. And we don't have any way to go up or any way to go down because we're just inside of fear. And the kid knows that there's no way up and down. And the situation it is in is not good. It's not the best option. But because of fear, the kid sees no other option because in fear we act unreasonable. And that's the same for us. We're inside our cage and we know we're locked in and we should leave, but we just can't because fear is there. So you may ask, so what does the kid do? How can the kid come down again? So what I do when I'm at the ground, I tell the kid, are you afraid? And the kid tells me about their fear. And I will tell the kid, I can promise you there's a rope and I will secure you. For many times I did that with every children, and every child come down without any harm, without any injuries. And after some time, the kid will understand that I will secure and that the rope holds, the rope will secure, and it will release the grip, and it can come down and be fine again. And if we translate it to our life, if we have somebody we can talk about our fears, the other person can help us to understand the fear. The other person will give us advice and help us. And sometimes we just need a person to talk about, to just understand our feelings and our fear. And it helps so much. And I just want to encourage you to talk to other person about your fears and about their fears. And this point is for me really important. Talk to other people. Don't stay alone in your fears, because then you will be inside your cage. But other people can open that cage of fear for you so you can escape. What's really interesting is the thing that happens after. So after 3 or 4 times, or even faster, the kid will be not afraid anymore. It will climb up and just put its hands away because it knows there's a rope. And the fear is gone because it can trust the rope. And when the kid sees another kid who's struggling, who's in fear at the top, the kid can help the other person and tells, oh, I know that, I was also afraid in this. But I know there's nothing will happen. And the kid motivates the other kid who is in fear. And the kids will come down. And that's one thing we should do. We should encourage other people who are in fears to help them to get out of their cage of fears. And that's one thing that's really important. And that was the last point number 5. Don't stay alone. Talk to other people about that. So these were 5 points I would give to you. And there's one last thing I would tell about fears. I think most of us know fears are there. We always have fears. They're some kind of inevitable. And they will come, maybe different, but they will come. But I know there's a big purpose in fear. And one purpose to fear is to grow in faith, but I would focus on something else. I will focus on the point that fear is a big chance for us to help other people, especially also in these corona times. So more than 500 years ago, there was the plague. So plague was a really, really strong disease where many people in Europe died. And because the medicine was not so far as it is right now, most people who were rich and healthy, they left the cities to go on the countryside. And only the sick and poor people stayed inside the cities, with nobody who cares about them. So that was a really terrible decision, a really terrible time for them. So what happened at that time? Many monks and Christians, they moved inside the cities to help these people, to care the sick people, the poor people, and help them. And at that point, they could help so many people. So many people decided that Jesus is good and Jesus cares for them. And I think that this situation is some kind the same. I don't want to say that we should do foolish and stupid things, but it's really important that we act in these times out of love and not of fear. That we really care about people who are vulnerable, that we care about people who are lonely and who need help. Because I know there are so many people who just feel bad in this situation. And for us, it's a really big chance to help them, to talk with them, to help them maybe by going shopping for them. And I would really like to encourage you to choose one person you just write or call today. How are you? How was your time? Because it's really, really important. And it helps the other person so much. I experienced by really, really a lot of persons. You just write a message, and for the person it changes so much because it sees somebody else cares for me. And as Jesus cares for us, we would also like to care for other persons. So please do that, and it's really nice to help other people. So now we're coming to the end. I'm very thankful that you listened so far. And I would just end to tell you Psalm 23. Yeah, Martin told it to you last time, but I just want to repeat it because it's really, really important and it's a really nice verse. So I read verse 1 to 4. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right path, for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valleys, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And just in this passage where he says, I will fear no evil because you are with me, it's like really strong, and that's something we really need to get down our heart, and our fear will reduce so much. At the last point, I just want to go back to the beginning, where I told you everyone has fears. And what's quite interesting, even Jesus had fears. So before Jesus was crucified, he was really, really scared. So he was frightened to death. And in the Bible it said that he sweat blood. And if you look to medicine, that's something people have if they are in a big stress and a big fear, they will sweat blood. So Jesus was really, really afraid. But what did he do? He went to other people, he went to his disciples, to his best friends, and told them, please pray with me. And that's last one, point number 6, pray. First pray with God, but also tell other people they should pray for me. So if you have anything, any fear, any things that like really makes you sad and sick, don't feel shy to tell anyone. Don't tell your friends, tell somebody from SMD what things you have in your heart that really makes you sad. And people will pray for that, and God can change the situation. And I will do that at the end of the topic. Pray for us. Yeah, Lord Jesus, I just thank you for everyone who listened and everyone who's part of the SMD, and I thank you that we are your childs and that you love us and you created us as your children. And I thank you that you gave us so much grace and you have a good plan for us. And I just say that fear has no power over us, that the cage of fear is weaker than you. You're stronger than all the fears we have in us. And I pray that we realize that you are good and you're our King and you love us. Amen. Thank you so much. And if you have anything on mind, feel free to contact anyone from the SMD staff. Bye bye. Hopefully see you soon.
That was our live stream for this week. Thanks to Johnny and all other staff members who were helping to make this online topic night possible. If you have questions, want to talk with someone, or if you need any help, you can keep contact with us. Have a good night and a blessed next week. See you!